Evening, everyone. Happy Wednesday, midweek already. Hope everyone's having a good week. Please excuse the hair. I've been moaning Myrtle today for World Book Day, so it's all a bit crazy here. Just waiting on Lauren to join. Lauren's going to be chatting with us about her upcoming release with Headline Eternal, which is out in April. Wish lists and road trips. Absolutely can't wait to read it. Cover looks absolutely stunning. So yeah, just waiting for Lauren to join us. Just checking requests. Okay, so I've just invited Lauren to join. Dan, the cover really is gorgeous, isn't it? I can't wait to read it. I've been emailing Headline Journal. So I've invited Lauren, just waiting for her to join us. Hopefully it'll work. Come on. Hope everyone's had a good Wednesday. Like I said, I was dressed up as Mona Myrtle for the day, which was not fun, but the kids loved it. Although one of my phone went, "Miss, are you Harry Potter?" I was like, "No, I'm not Harry Potter, I'm Mona Myrtle." Okay, so Lauren has joined. Yeah, I'm just going to accept Lauren. Hopefully it's going to work. Technology, please do not fail me. Okay, so that's telling me Lauren's unable to join. So if I send an invite, hopefully Lauren has received my invite, and it should. Hopefully.
Hello.
Hello!
Hi.
How are you this evening?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. I've just been rambling. We had World Book Day today, so I was Mona Myrtle for the day, so
Uh,
that was quite fun. And
well,
before
it's
you,
only 3 p.m. here, so I'm kind of in the middle of my day. Oops, I put a
where,
weird filter on myself. Let me get
how
rid of
did you
that.
do that?
I'm gonna try to stop it. There we go.
Yeah,
There.
no,
Now,
it's 8 p.m. here, so we're coming to the end of our day. Um, what I was just saying as well before you joined is obviously wish lists and road trips is coming out in April with Headline Eternal. Very
yes,
exciting. Um,
yes,
we love the cover. The cover is
um,
absolutely gorgeous. Can
yes.
you
I'm very happy with it.
can you tell us a little bit about the book?
So the book is about Nick and Britt, who are two strangers at the time who are taking a cruise for two very different reasons. Britt is she recently ended her engagement, and this was supposed to be her honeymoon cruise. So she's taking it by herself. And Nick is actually on a mission for his late brother. He has his late brother's ashes with him, and he's trying to follow a list that his brother has given him of places to scatter the ashes. And they both end up missing their reboarding time, also for two very different reasons, given their personalities. And they, through some fateful decisions, end up driving home, flying, and then driving, and then taking other modes of transportation home together. So, and it goes from there.
That sounds like it's going to be so much fun to read. What was your inspiration behind the book?
Okay, so I really love to tell you this story. I have a group chat, as most of us do, with some wonderful women who I know from writing fan fiction many years ago. And we all just have kept in touch, and we all still write. And one of my good friends, Cece, one day she was telling us a story about one of her coworkers who was on a cruise and missed their reboarding time. And I just thought, well, that's a story right there, like that, and let's make it a romance because that's what I write. So yeah, that was the inspiration, and I knew as soon as she said it, I was like, this is gonna be my favorite thing that I've ever written, and it is. It's my favorite.
So going back to obviously the books you've already written, is this one very different, or would you say it's similar?
It's actually quite different. My first three books, which I've self-published, well, the biggest difference for me is the first three are written in third person, and this one I wrote in first person. So that was a stretch for me, to flex a few different muscles that I haven't used before, and that was really fun. I don't think I'll go back to third person. It was really fun writing in first and getting really deep like that into the characters' heads. Um, Other than that, I like to write emotional backstories. This one I think is the most emotional. It's a little bit deeper than my first three books in terms of what the characters are dealing with.
Sounds brilliant. Can you tell us a little bit about your sort of writing routine? I know you mentioned you've got little ones, so how do you fit it all in?
Well, they go to school most of the time. It's interesting because I'm actually trying to finish up a project right now. And so my kids were on February vacation last week, and then they were supposed to go back Monday, and we got a text message from the school saying that the heating system was broken, so there was no school.
No.
And then yesterday we had a snow day, uh, so they're back today finally after a week and almost a half. So yeah, I write. I'm lucky enough to be able to stay home with my kids. So when they're in school, I write from the beginning of when I drop them off till I have to go pick them up. Right now, they're in
Is
some after school activities. So
so is that
I,
every day, or do you find yourself distracted sometimes?
no, I write pretty much every day. I'm always working on some project. I was actually thinking when I wrap this current one up that I'm working on, I was thinking, well, I'm just going to take a couple weeks off and do something else, maybe clean my house, which is falling by the wayside. But then I really thought, realistically, I'm probably not going to be able to do that. So I'll pull something else out that I've been working on, or come up with something new. But yeah,
Do
that's
you
how I do most of the time.
do you sort of know the ending when you start a book, or do you just go with the characters? How do you sort of
Um,
work your writing?
I am almost always a plotter, so I pretty much know the ending when I start a book. If I don't, or if I change my mind halfway through, it really just messes with me. So I try not to do that. But yeah, I'm a plotter. I have a plotting system that I use that I've kind of created from a bunch of different ones. I have craft books that I like, and I've kind of pieced my own system together from parts of different systems, different plotting sheets, and all of that. And so I typically do know the ending when I start. But sometimes I might not, like when I started Wish Lists and Road Trips, I knew kind of how it was going to end, but I didn't know how that scene was going to play out. So it was fun to kind of figure out where the setting of that was going to be and how they were going to resolve some of those issues.
That sounds really interesting. I think I would want to know where I was going, or I would just ramble. Or that would be the fear anyway. I would be really worried about rambling. So, writing
Yes.
romance, do you find you read romance, or do you avoid reading romance when you're writing? I know every author is different.
I read it almost exclusively. I read it all the time. I'm almost always reading a book. It's true. A lot of my writer friends will say that they don't read while they're drafting because they're afraid that, the voice will bleed into their work. And I see that. Like, I can definitely see sometimes, like, I'll go back and think, oh, I think I was reading this book when I was writing that because it has more of a this feel. And I'll just edit it
Mm,
out and put it back in my own voice. But yeah, I'm always reading because like I said, I'm a big plotter. So once I got a really good handle on plotting and beat sheets and all of that, I find that I can't really read without it feeling like I'm studying.
yeah.
And I love studying, so it's really fun for me to study craft and to read other authors, how their voice sounds, how they spin different plot points different ways, and so yeah, I'm always reading, always.
Who are your favorite authors to read, or your favorite books to read?
I absolutely love Christina Lauren. I almost always go back to them. There's only a couple books of theirs that I haven't read, and they're just the most brand new ones.
Yeah.
So I almost always go back to them for rereads. I think I read in a holidays every Christmas. They're my top favorite. I love Helena Hunting. I love Abby Jimenez. I love Emily Henry and Kate Claiborne. Those are my top favorites. I'm actually looking at a stack of books right in front of me, and they're all right there. Everyone I just said is right there, coincidentally.
Have you sort of considered, obviously, when you finish, so you finished obviously wish lists and road trips now, do you sort of consider what happens to the characters once you finish writing them? Like what might happen to them next?
Oh yes, that's it's hard to stop thinking about them. That's the hardest part for me in terms of starting a new project is I don't want to let those old characters go. So yeah, I mean, I basically know everything that happens to Nick and Britt for the rest of their lives. In my head, it's canon.
Would there be another book?
Um, there's a lot of different things that go into that decision. I would love to, but we'll see. Tom is one of my favorite side characters in that book, and I would absolutely love to write his book, but I don't know if that's the path that we're going down right now. So maybe.
Could you tell us anything about what's coming post wish lists and road trips?
Um, well, I really can't, unfortunately, but what I can, I was thinking about this question because I was like, oh, I
Yeah.
bet they're going to ask me this. And there's not a lot that I can share about it.
Okay.
But what I can share about it is one of the things that's been really fun for me to write. So in Wishlist and Road Trips, that was my first time writing a Grumpy Sunshine pairing, and I had so much fun writing Britt being her sunshiny self and writing Nick being, his grumpy self. So when I was done with that, I thought, well, that was really fun to pick a trope that I haven't done before. And all of my male characters, even Nick, who's sort of grumpy in his own way, they're all kind of like the cinnamon roll heroes. I don't really write a lot of alpha heroes. I read them, but I don't really write them. And so this next book is, again, not an alpha hero, but one of the terms that I have heard like thrown around is the golden retriever hero, the golden retriever energy hero. And I was like, I want to write that. I think that would be fun. That kind of buoyant and a little bit mischievous type of character. So that's one thing I can share. I'm enjoying writing that type of hero right now.
Perfect. And can we expect more books with Headline Eternal, or are you not allowed to tell us?
I can't tell you because I don't know.
Okay, fair. That's fair. Um, who are you author friends with? Do you have a group of author friends who you tend to sort of bounce ideas and chats and things with? And how would
Yeah.
you say they make you a better author?
Well, so that's interesting because I started out an indie author, and it's such a tight knit group. And if you can get in with your own little group there, it's extremely helpful. I mean, sharing just marketing ideas because you're doing it all yourself at that point. So pooling resources is best for everybody. Pooling knowledge. When I switched over to traditional publishing, it's still all my author friends are still indie, so except for a couple new ones. So um, Eve Casey is a good friend of mine. Melissa Grace is a good friend of mine. Mia Heinzelman is a good friend of mine. Mia actually just switched over to trad too, or she's kind of doing hybrid. um, KJ, I know you're on here and I don't know how to say your last name. KJ, I think it's Mickey. She wrote the book proposal, and she is a newer friend of mine who we've just got along wonderfully. So, yeah, a lot of women that I just love being able to talk to about bookish stuff, reading and writing.
Yeah.
Michike, KJ Michike. She typed it phonetically for me.
Oh, bless her. So obviously you've mentioned your sort of indie journey. Do you have a preference between indie or traditional? Because obviously I know it's very different. As an indie, you have more control over sort of everything, whereas traditional, I'm not really sure how much control you as an author get. How do you
Yeah.
find the difference between the two?
Um, I really like having control. Um, but it is so much work. So any indie author that you read, please know that they are living and breathing this 24 hours a day. It is so much work. And it's lucky for me, I enjoy the work that it is. I like marketing. I used to work in marketing a long time ago. I like branding. I like marketing. I like making graphics on Canva. I like doing author interviews, but you have to do all of this yourself. So going traditional, it's been really nice to kind of let some of that stuff happen and just be able to write. So I don't know that I have a preference, but I'm really enjoying traditional publishing right now.
I can imagine it takes a bit of pressure off you having sort of other people to do different bits for you.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and there's only so much reach that you have as an indie author. So it's nice to, I mean, I'm sure you and I never would have met if it weren't for
No.
Headline Eternal. So I can only do so much on my own. So yeah, it's traditional is neither one is easier, but there are definitely some benefits.
Yeah, and that's one thing with Headline Eternal. They sort of do bring these authors, and you're like, I need to read that book. I mean, I've emailed Felicity and Isabel so many times already about wish lists. I'm like, come on, girls, hurry up, please.
Well, I hope you get it soon.
Fingers crossed, fingers crossed. Um, do you sort of look at your book reviews? Obviously, I know I was chatting with Louise Jensen last week, who writes under Amelia Henley in the UK as well.
Okay.
And I was quite outraged to find that people tag authors in sort of negative reviews. Do you tend to
Yeah.
read your reviews, and how do you deal with those bad ones? Because obviously, the book you're writing, I suppose, is like another child in a way.
Yeah.
You put so much of yourself into it, and then somebody tags you and is like, they don't like it. How do you deal with
Well,
that?
I have been lucky. I have not had anybody tag me in a negative review. I just go and search them out myself. So yeah, I read my reviews. I know. And I'm so proud of authors who don't and who can just be like, yeah, I have no idea what people are saying about my book. Good for them. I'm so proud of you. I wish I could do that. I wish I was that strong, but the internet just offers it up to me right there. I mean, it's public knowledge, and I'm on Goodreads for my own reading, so it's impossible for me not to see it. In Goodreads, I don't know if you are aware, but when you're a Goodreads author, you get a whole dashboard, and it gets updated every time someone reviews. So you have to really go out of your way to not use it, to not see your reviews. So how do I deal with it? It's funny because I just was telling someone else this a couple weeks ago, and this is my little ritual. If I get a bad review, and I let myself, feel it, and then I go, oh, when you ask me my favorite authors, Sally Thorne is at the top. And I mention this because one of my favorite things to do when I get a bad review is to go to Sally Thorne's Goodread page and go to The Hating Game, which I think is probably the best romance I've ever read. And I read all of her one-star reviews. I think, look at all these people who hated The Hating Game, and I loved it. So it's all subjective. That's how I
Absolutely. I mean, I also
healthy. I
loved
don't know.
that book. And there is another sort of series with Headline Eternal that if you like that one, you'll probably like. Have you read the Bromance Book Club
I
by
haven't.
Lissa K. Adams? Oh, they're so good.
It's been on my list for so long, and then when she came out with the Christmas one this year, I was like, oh, this is going to be the year I'm going to read the Christmas one. And then I thought, well, I should probably start at the beginning, and so I haven't done it yet, but yeah, I definitely want to.
I mean, you could read the Christmas one first because they're all focused on different characters, but they're just
Okay.
brilliant. I'm like, she can't end this series now because I don't know what I would do.
I'll definitely check it out.
I would absolutely sort of check it out. So, obviously, you've mentioned your favorite authors. What would your sort of top three recommendations be for romance readers?
Well, definitely Christina Lauren. because I think they have something for everybody. Their older stuff is super, super spicy. Um, and then their newer stuff is a lot tamer and a lot more plot based. So I think you could pick up one of their books, anybody could, and find something that they would enjoy. And I think they're just kind of like romance canon at this point. Like they're right up there in royalty. um, and a couple, and of course everybody should read Emily Henry. But some lesser known ones that I've really found that I think more people should be reading. Definitely Kate Claiborne. Her prose is just beautiful. She has a very interesting way of writing, and I think it's just really enjoyable to read her words. And Lacey Walden, who I forgot to mention earlier, is one of my favorites. I have a lot of favorites. The
I think we all
Layover.
do.
Yeah, it's hard to narrow it down. Her book, The Layover, I tweeted a while back when I did a reread of that book, and I find Emily Henry is again up there in just royalty of romance writing, but I really feel like Lacey Walden is very much on that caliber and that type of story. So if you like Emily Henry, you should definitely check out Lacey Walden, The Layover. She has a new book coming out in March, and I don't know the name of it. I forget. I've already pre-ordered it, so I don't remember the name of it. But yeah, for my top recommendations would definitely be Christina Lauren, Kate Claiborne, Lacey Walden, Helena Hunting, all my favorites.
Do you just sort of read romance, or do you sort of sway out of the genre and read others?
Um, Probably for the past like 5 years, I've strictly read romance just because there's so much of it and it makes me so happy. And sometimes I'll buy books that are in different genres and I'll look at them and they're pretty on my shelf. Although this year I did read Spells for Forgetting by Adrienne
Okay.
Young. And that has a very, very strong romance subplot, but it's fantastical and magical and a little bit creepy. So I wouldn't, it's not a romance, even though it has a strong romance vibe to it. That was probably my top favorite book that I read in 2022. So every once in a while I stray out, stray out of there.
Do you have any non-romance sort of favorite authors?
Well, I'm going to cheat and say Sophie Kinsella because even though she writes romance, she has a lot of women's fiction type books as well. And Leanne Moriarty is one of my favorites too. It's been a couple years, but I did read a whole bunch of her books a couple years ago, and that's really considered women's fiction. So I would say those two are
What
top.
What about Jodi Picoult? Have you read her?
No, and she's one that I have two of her books, and she's actually from New Hampshire, I think, and I'm in Maine, so where I should be reading her in New England solidarity. But I have a couple of her books. I haven't read them.
I think if you enjoy sort of Leanne Moriarty, I think you would enjoy. But again, it depends which books you pick up,
Yeah,
because and what mood you're in when you read them, I suppose. Because I don't know whether you're the same, but I'm very much a mood reader. My mood picks for me.
yeah, yeah, and like it depends on the time of year. In October, I'll maybe pick up a thriller, or that's why I read Spells for Forgetting because it was October and it was kind of creepy in that way. So, yeah.
So, how long did it take you to write sort of wish lists and road trips?
It took me over 2 years to write that book. But I was also writing the third book of my self-published series at the same time. So that definitely held me up a little bit. But yeah, I started writing that book before the pandemic. So it was a long time ago. And it took me about 2 years. Luckily, querying it didn't take me that long, and being on sub didn't take me that long, so I kind of caught up in that manner. And writing two books at a time is really difficult for me, so I probably won't try to do that again. Typically, I think it takes me about a year to write a book, which is so long in the world of publishing, and that's kind of one of the benefits for me in terms of going with traditional publishing, because when you're writing indie published books, you need to write faster than I do to keep up. And I think I went like a year and a half in between book releases, and it you definitely take a hit in your readership at that point. So yeah, it takes me a long time. I'm a slow
So
writer.
how do you then feel about those readers who sort of come to you on publication day and say, Lauren, I finished your book? When obviously it's taken you so long to write it, and then your readers are like a couple of hours and it's done.
Yeah, well, I can relate because I mean, I'll read a book in about 2 days, and I know that those authors probably spent probably not as long as me, but probably spent a very long time writing it. So, yeah, but it's kind of like making a big meal for dinner, and it takes you all day, and then it takes you 5 minutes to eat it at the end of the day. So, but as long as you enjoy it, right? And if they read it
Exactly.
fast, that means they probably liked it. So,
Yeah. That's that's my sort of thing. I'm like, if I read a book really quickly, it's because I don't want to put it down. So it's a good
right.
thing. But
Hmm.
then I know like obviously so much work goes into them and they take so long. And so last year I read Chris Carter's book on the day of publication because I was off work on summer holidays. And literally a couple of hours, and I was messaging him like, when's the next one, please? And he's like, it took me 2 years to write it. I'm like, oh, okay, nice long wait.
Well, good. So it's not just me that takes 2 years.
No, definitely not. Would you sort of write any other genre?
Um, I would love to write a thriller with a very strong romance, sub sub story romance in it. But I would love to do that. I would love to write like a scary book, a thriller slash horror. I would love to do that. I've written a couple short stories in that genre. One that I really liked and would love to turn into a novel someday. But right now I'm pretty solidly in the romance camp, and I like it here. So we'll see. Maybe if it will take me less time to write a book someday, then I could try to spread out across genres. But that if I could choose one, it would be that.
I love that. What would you say is your favorite thing then about being an author?
Um, well, it's really, I mean, living in a fantasy world, right? It's kind of like I get to play pretend all day in my head, and that's a viable thing for me to do, which is really fun and interesting. It's kind of like when you're a little kid, like you love fairy tales, and if you get to grow up and write books, why wouldn't you? There's no manual labor involved. There's no well, I won't say there's no stress, but it's not life or death. So, it's just a fun time. Even when it's difficult, it's an escape. You're always escaping. So if you enjoy reading, writing is just the next step up of enjoyable experiences.
What's your favorite part of the process? Is it sort of first draft? Is it editing? Is it the book going to readers, or do you hate that part like a lot of authors do?
I love that part. I don't mind it in terms of, I know it's funny, a lot of writers are introverts and are very, shy away from this type of stuff, the PR stuff and the doing interviews and doing appearances. I love it. I was a cheerleader for a very, very long part of my life, and then I coached competition cheering for a very long part of my life. So that part of putting myself out there doesn't bother me. I can definitely see why it's a different skill set than writing. So I understand why it's hard for some people to switch back and forth. But my favorite part, and this is just silly and it's just me, but it's actually like an integral part of my process is like I cast my characters in my head, like I pick a face for them. And I can't start writing until I do that, until I know exactly what they look like. And it has to be like, a face grab. I can't just make it up in my head. So I'll cast them. I have Gosh, if anything happens to me, please delete my phone history. Because I have so many pictures on there of just, I have this app where you can put, everyone has that, you could put pictures side by side. So I have like folders full of my character face grabs side by side and their little pictures. But that's my favorite part is kind of plotting out what they look like and then figuring out why they need each other.
Okay, that's really interesting. Because I was actually going to ask you next if sort of wish lists and road trips was to become a series or a film, who would you want cast as your sort of main characters?
Well, so that's actually a hard question for me to answer because the face grabs that I used are not like viable actors and actresses. Um, I cast Britt as Brittany Murphy, who is no longer with us, but she was my absolute like total girl crush growing up. I'm a elder millennial, and she's my total like girl love when I was a kid and teenager. So like her face is just who Britt is to me. So um, maybe you can help me think of this person's name. There is it Lily Reinhart? There is an actress who everyone says looks just like Brittany Murphy. I'll have to think on who it was. I
Yeah,
think her name is Lily. Well, I can't Google it because I'm using my phone. I think it's Lily Reinhart, but someone can tell me if I'm wrong. But if there's someone out there that looks just like Brittany Murphy, then that would be the person. And the face grab that I used for Nick is actually a baseball player. I'm a big baseball fan, and I used a professional baseball player for his face. So unless he wants to get into acting, that wouldn't work. So yeah, I can't really answer that question because if it's not them, I can't picture who it would be.
yeah,
I'd be
that is a
interested
hard
to hear.
question.
Yeah, I'd be interested to hear if anybody else cast them in their head with someone that would be a viable option.
I mean, sort of even now, recently read the sort of reunion Sweet Valley High book because
Yeah.
growing up, I just loved those books, and I still picture the two girls from the TV series when I was reading it, and I was like,
Yeah.
you need to get this out of your head now because this is 20 years old.
Right. They're grown.
Yeah. But it's definitely really
Yes, Lily
interesting how you
Reinhart.
associate people. Okay.
So thank you, Nada. Lily Reinhart. Yes, she looks a lot like Brittany Murphy. They have very different voices and different color eyes. I noticed when I was face grabbing. But yeah, that would be a good one.
So you've just said you really enjoy baseball. Would that ever
Yes.
go into your books at all?
So I don't know. I mean, I put almost all of my main characters played baseball in the past. I always throw that in there. They liked baseball, they watched baseball. I actually have a baseball romance that is written and not edited, and I don't know whether I want to. I actually even bought a cover for it like 3 years ago, and I don't know what I'm going to do with it because I don't want to spend the time editing it right now to get it to that stage. But someday I may put it out. It's actually based off of a fan fiction that I wrote many years ago. That was a baseball player hero. But yeah, I don't know. I kind of like to separate those two loves of my life. I haven't even really read very many baseball romances. I'm not sure why.
I can't say that I have either, to be honest. There's none coming to mind
Yeah.
where sort of baseball is quite a main feature in it.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting because I've listened to Lindsay Kelk talk as well, and she's a big wrestling fan. And I've said
Oh,
to her, would that ever go into your book? And she's like, I don't think they would let me put it into my books. And I'm like,
really?
but it would be really interesting.
Yes.
It would be really, really interesting. So, with your writing, and obviously now the traditional, how much sort of input have you had with wish lists and road trips?
Well, Headline was wonderful in terms of getting my ideas for the cover. It was definitely their concept, and I loved it. But they let me give feedback, and they made a few little changes based on my feedback. And they even before they did the concept up, they allowed me to send some sort of like inspiration pictures, like a little Pinterest board that I had of what I thought it would look like and other covers that I loved. So that's been great. Um, and in terms of marketing things, I've kind of been able to do my own thing just because I'm used to doing it. I've been doing it for a long time, so I have my own little systems. Um, yeah, they kept my title, which was funny because the title changed before we put it on submission, so that wasn't the title that I wrote it with, but they kept it, so they liked it. Um, it was a good one, I guess.
It's
But
one of
yeah,
those
no, they
titles that jumps out at you, I think,
yeah, and it
and
definitely
you sort of
fits.
want to know more.
Yeah, yeah, and it definitely fits. I mean, it encompasses the story for sure. So I liked it. I love the cover. Yeah, there hasn't been a ton of opportunity really to give input because it's just kind of plugging along. But anytime that there has been, they've been great.
And that's good that you've still got that control after swapping from sort of your traditional to your sort of from indie to traditional.
Yeah, yeah. The cover was a big one for me. When I switched to traditional, I was thinking, oh my goodness, because I love my covers for my self-published books. I hired Lenny Kaufman. Like, I have to say this, I hired her like way before she got huge, so I was really lucky. Just why I could afford her at the time. But yeah, she's like everywhere now. Doing covers for Berkeley and Avon and everyone. So I was really lucky, and obviously her work is just gorgeous. So to have those in my self-published books, I was really nervous. Like, what is my cover going to look like? Is it going to be up to that type of level? And it was just gorgeous. I loved what they did.
And that I suppose that's really good because obviously you've put so much work into the book. You don't want to be then disappointed when you saw the cover. So that's really
Yeah,
good that it's all sort of come together.
yeah.
Is being an author what you've always wanted to do?
Yes, but then I kind of like gave up on that dream for almost 20 years. When I was in college, I studied history and my minor was secondary education and I was going to be a teacher because I didn't really know what else I was going to do. And then my junior year, I decided, because I was super responsible back then, I decided that I didn't want to spend the time that I would have to be off campus student teaching because I liked being on campus and I was like, I'm not going to be able to hang out with my friends. So I dropped that minor and picked up a creative writing minor and with the intention I said, I want to be a writer. This is what I want to do. And I had some really great professors who were extremely supportive in that. And I still think of their comments to this day as why I picked it back up. But then, you graduate and you have to pay bills and you have to, you don't have to, but you get married, you have kids, and it just kind of is like, oh, I don't know if this is even something that I can do. So I have always wanted to do it. I don't know that I was ever always on that path, but I'm really happy to be back here for sure. And fan fiction is why I'm back here. My kids were very, very little and I missed writing so much, and that gave me the opportunity to kind of just do it for fun again. And I had so much fun doing it, and at that point I couldn't stop. So
It's all worked out for the right path, Dan.
yes. Yes, I think so.
Would would you consider teaching now?
Well, I substitute teach sometimes, and I do really enjoy it. If I wasn't writing, I would probably do it more. Now that my kids are older and I can do that. So maybe, but I prefer to be a writer.
Are your children readers?
Yes, yeah. They both are very strong readers, and my eldest is actually writing a lot. He writes comic books. His ELA teachers will constantly tell me, this kid's going to be a writer, and they actually don't even know that I'm a writer because I have a pen name, and they just don't know that. So it's funny for me to talk to them about it. They're just very enthusiastic about my eldest son's writing and. Yeah, they don't even know that it's kind of like a family profession.
I love that. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. What we always do, we always finish off with a bit of a lightning round.
Okay.
So you're not allowed to think about your answers. You've just got to say the first one that comes to mind.
Okay.
Okay. So we'll start off nice and easy. Tea or coffee?
Oh, neither. I don't, well, I guess cold tea. I don't drink coffee.
Dogs or cats?
Cats.
Cozy romance or steamy romance?
Steamy.
Summer or winter setting?
Summer.
Your favourite trope?
Well, now it's Grumpy Sunshine.
And if you could only recommend one book for the next 12 months, what book would it be?
The Hating Game. Absolutely. Everyone read it. It's like
You
10 years
didn't
old now.
you didn't even need to think about that.
Didn't know.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Um, can you just finish off by telling everybody in 30 seconds why they should read Wish Lists and Road Trips, which is out on the 18th of April over here? And you'll have to sort of give us the American date, if that's
Yeah,
okay.
it's out in ebook and audiobook on April 18th here in the United States as well. The paperback won't be out until September 12th in the US and Canada. And why should you read Wish Lists and Road Trips? I think that you will find Britt is just the sunshine that you need in your life. She's super just happy and fun, and I think she'll put a smile on your face, and I think you might have a little crush on Nick at the end too. It's got adventure, and I think it'll make your day.
I love that. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank
Good luck
you.
with publication,
Thank you.
and hopefully we can book in another conversation closer to the next book.
Yes, that would be wonderful, and I
Fingers
hope that they
crossed.
grant your request soon for a
Thank
copy.
you.
Thank
Thank you
you
so
very,
much for
very much.
joining us. Bye.
Okay, bye.